Let me tell you about the trend of vertical integration in U.S. corporations in the early 20th century and how it changed the U.S. economy. The essence of this trend was as follows. Every time a manufacturer ordered a parts, materials, or services from an external supplier, everyone understood that the supplier had a certain profit margin. And this, in turn, meant that the supplier's price, which included his profit margin, also affected the price of the final product. And the logic of this trend was that if you take control of suppliers, you can take this additional profit margin for yourself and either increase the profitability of final production or reduce prices to increase sales. Plus, control of suppliers made it possible to avoid supply disruptions. The problem was that not everyone had such opportunities. If you take the auto industry, then before Henry Ford, automakers were not so large as to dictate terms to larger steel producers or railroad companies. Moreover, the high prices for cars allowed them to work normally, regardless of who earns how much further down the chain. And when Ford came to the industry, he understood one thing. In order to create a new mass market for cars, it was necessary to make these cars cheaper and more accessible to people with lower incomes. And in order to reduce the price, it was necessary to increase productivity and reduce costs. And here, conveyor mass production was only one tool for achieving this goal. Another tool was vertical integration. Ford was not the first in this direction. Before him, there were Carnegie and Rockefeller, who also created vertically integrated businesses. The difference between these manufacturers was simply that they created raw materials with a minimal level of processing, and therefore the value-added chains there were minimal. And the scale of Ford's vertical integration was different in that its final production had a much longer chain. And when Ford built the River Rouge plant, at that time it was considered the largest vertically integrated production in the world, where the entire production chain, from steel, smelting to car production, was concentrated in one place. In addition, Ford also had its own electricity generation, iron and coal mines, a rubber plantation, forests, a sawmill, a railway, and steamships. No manufacturer before him had such a scale and principle. And here we can quote some points from his book, Today and Tomorrow. The production process, starting from mining ore and ending with the loading of the finished car into a freight car, today takes about 81 hours or 3 days and 9 hours. Although in the past, this process took us as much as 14 days, and we considered it a record speed. And as Ford further wrote in his book, if iron ore arrived on Monday morning at the River Rouge plant, then on Wednesday noon, a finished car was produced. And all this efficiency of work is achieved thanks to control over all production processes, as well as optimization of logistics within the plant. And of course, such high efficiency of the production process had a very big impact on other industries, which is why vertical integration was the dominant model in almost all large US corporations until the 80s. And this was not just a trend that changed business. It was a trend that formed a certain structure of the economy at that time. For example, in the 60s, General Motors was the largest employer in the US and employed 500,000 people. And the company had such a large staff because not only blue-collar workers worked there, but also a large number of white-collar workers. It should also be noted that at that time there were no computers, and quite a lot of office work related to document management was done manually and required a lot of manual labor. And although I did not find information about the professional composition of General Motors, I found such a composition in US manufacturing. So, in 1960, 17.5 million people worked in US manufacturing, or 27% of the workforce. Of these 17 million workers who worked in US manufacturing, 5 million were white collars. Among them were 300,000 secretaries, 200,000 stenographers and typists. There were also 900,000 people in industrial enterprises who were in the management category. Another category of white collars was professional specialties: auditors, accountants, lawyers, designers, scientists. There were 1.3 million of them. A separate large group was also formed by sellers, who numbered 700,000. With these statistics, I only wanted to show how the model of vertical integration in business led to the emergence of a huge administrative apparatus in industrial enterprises, which is why this model later became ineffective and led to a decline in its popularity. Nevertheless, despite the fact that in the 80s, the popularity of this model significantly decreased, it still works in some industries.